Pokemon Centers are a quiet yet essential backbone along any trainer's journey. These are some of the most important places in any Pokemon game, where they act as your hyper-traditional save points for regular play. This is where you get to heal your team, manage your collection, set up waypoints for regional fast travel, and engage with a number of other quality of life facets depending on which generation you're in. The presentation and offerings have evolved and changed over the years, but this DNA of a hub or town center has always felt like the primary function. And as a video game construct, they do a fantastic job at achieving that goal. But with all that said, I almost feel a certain sadness or longing when it comes to Pokemon Centers, because there often comes a point in the journey, or maybe even our journey as people, where the base function is almost too effective in a weird way, becoming streamlined and transactional, rather than the crossroads of life that the game's storytelling and set dressing depicts it as. Which is completely fine, by the way. I'm a huge advocate for playing a game however you see fit, and at a certain point, this is just where you heal. But for that very same reason, what I want to do today is search for those stories and emotional meanings inside of these welcoming sanctuaries. Actually talk with and consider these NPCs, especially if they don't do anything mechanical. Because today we ask, what about the people of Pokemon Centers? And what sort of stories can be found lurking in one of this universe's least suspecting places? We're definitely going for a street interview kind of vibe here, so I can't think of a better center to start with than Pacifidlog's in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. Despite the distant, borderline satellite location of this town, even being referred to by some as out in the sticks, the Pokemon Center is actually a pretty happening place, with a real rose gallery of characters relaxing inside. This guy at the table is an undiscovered musician who can also somehow teach you the move Explosion. It's pretty weird and wacky. And then this girl by the books says she has a copper trainer card. I assume that there was primarily a sort of vague attempt here to bring the player's attention to that feature, but I really think she deserves her flowers. Also, who the hell is this person? Because that's a massive achievement in universe. A copper card corresponds to 2 trainer stars, one of which can be awarded for any of the following 4 achievements: beating the Elite Four, becoming a contest superstar, completing the Pokédex in some form, or doing particularly well at the Hoenn battle facilities. All things that I, at least, would consider pretty major struggles. I have spent odysseys worth of time working on these achievements, multiple of which still to no avail. The stars technically don't have an exact scripted order, but to have any of these 2 in the books would easily scale this person at least on gym leader level, if not Elite Four or Frontier Brain even. Logically, we can deduce that she's a straight up expert in either catching, collecting, or contesting, and we don't even know her name. Who in the world is this vagrant traveler? And what sort of stories could they tell beyond this tiny tidbit? But I suppose it's not for mortal ears to know. Passing ships, as they say. But we're still not done with this center just yet, because our 2 remaining NPCs are also filled with their own unique type of intrigue. This girl in the middle writes, Pacifidlog town floats on a colony of Corsola. Hey, that's really cool. If I told you that, would you believe me? Oh, wait, so are you actually lying then? Is this even true? It's such a fascinating addition to that statement, because it's initially very standard Pokemon trivia fare, and virtually all of the real-world reporting on the town presents it in the same way. But now I'm not sure? Would you believe me? Don't know if I do. You can't really see anything in the overworld in either iteration of Hoenn, and you can't find wild Corsola here, so there's not a way to empirically confirm this. But she also kinda sounds like one of my friends when they're being terrible and will add interesting to a completely true statement just to mess with me, so I don't really know either way. But it is pretty uncommon to have a non-evil team coded NPC throw in some vagrant deceit to their dialogue. It's just a little weird, and so you know what? I'm a fan. Be whimsical with strangers. It's a pretty good vibe. Then we've got this fellow on the other side. The ancestors of the people in Pacifidlog were said to have been born on boats and then lived and died aboard them. I understand that they lived that way because they were searching for something. Definitely warrants a follow-up, but that's all we got. Now, this is a pretty classical method of delivery for in-world mythology. You can't make it very far in any Pokemon game without someone sharing legends of lore like this. However, I have particular reverence for this one because it's ambiguous enough to the point of drawing your own conclusions about the story. In full, there are 3 somethings floating around Pacifidlog. Maybe they were searching for the sealed chamber and all the stuff with the Reggies in the Western Sea. Or maybe it was the appearing and disappearing Mirage Island. Or maybe it was even something related to Rayquaza plaza and the sky pillar. The latter is probably a little less likely just because it's so out in the open, but it's really cool how this legend is plausibly open-ended and there's just so much lore floating around this settlement. What did they think they were searching for? These are the great questions of the Pokemon world. Now we head for the wonderful Kalos region, home to what is likely the greatest Pokemon Center design in the series at large. These later centers all subscribe to an all-in-one service model with a huge number of offerings, but these ones in particular look really fun to hang out in. You could chill with your friends in here during a rainstorm or something for hours and have fun the whole time. What I'm trying to say is that this is the ideal third place. But I digress. Check out this happening individual in the Sunyshore City Pokemon Center. Says they've been playing this totally sweet game recently. You play as some cool little dude who runs around and whacks enemies to the beat of the music. And I guess this is like half of an ad for a completely different game, one that seems to exist both in and out of the Pokemon world. In 2012, about a year before X and Y came out, Game Freak would release Harmonite, a very creative rhythm platformer on the 3DS eShop. And yeah, you play as a little dude who does stuff to the beat of the music. This is definitely the game they're talking about. I feel a little bad for Game Freak sometimes when it comes to stuff like this, because this is a really great game. It's really unique, combines multiple gameplay genres in an intuitive way, and offers a lot of substance that elevates the concept far beyond its initial gimmick. But it's not Pokemon, so it's probably not getting its flowers. They have a really impressive catalog of non-Pokemon titles too, like Drill Dozer and Pocket Card Jockey have randomly become some of my all-time favorite games. And I'd say they more than deserve this shout in an actual Pokemon game. It is sort of strange at this point though, because with the 3DS eShop officially down and Harmonite only releasing on that platform, you can't officially follow up on the reference anymore, even if you knew what it was talking about. So the NPC ultimately lands in a sort of limbo-ish place, and it makes for an interesting snapshot this much further down the road. While journeying across Kalos in search of such intrigue, I also found this individual of particular interest for telling a sequence story across multiple centers. They seem to be a songwriter or bard of sorts, and as you journey across the region on your adventure, they'll share their progress on a song that they've been working on, giving you individual verses in a larger saga about the Kalos War and AZ, with each center you meet at pushing the song's story a little bit further along, and then the NPC moving to their next stopping point. Once you've heard every verse available around Kalos, they ultimately end up parked in Crossroads City where you can hear the entire song.
The Kalos region, now upheld as fair, from ancient days and ugly past doth bear. The woes of war did knock on every door, till man nor Pokemon could take no more. 3,000 years ago, upon this shore, so many lives were lost, both man and mon. It seemed a night that ne'er would bring dawn, no beauty, no joy in those days of yore. Only the pain of parting was in store for the victims of the ancient Kalos War. Man's grief brought the end, the world did tear. Wartime finished in a lightning flare. Mon's rage brought the end, a furious roar. Lightning crackled forth to end the war. Kalos's long pain was then no more. One man through it all lives ever on. To a Pokemon once lost, he's ever drawn. One man through it all lives ever on, searching for his heart, long lost and gone. At last his labors brought end to his chore. Bountiful kindness from his heart did pour, his Pokemon to part with nevermore.
Yeah, pretty awesome little ballad they put together here, and maybe one of some additional significance with AZ soon to be returning in Legend ZA, but I really have to stop and marvel at how shaping this is for the life of the world. These games really shine as living and breathing places when they present other dynamic characters on their own journeys that happen to cross paths with your own. And in many cases, it can feel like running into or clashing with another protagonist in the very same story. It's often these trainers that allow the Pokemon world to feel so lived in from a narrative perspective. But characters like this, who are working and growing with things, not hyper-focused on Pokemon themselves, accomplish something extremely unique for the world. I mean, yeah, it's Pokemon after all. Of course the focus is usually the battling, the training, or the collecting. But to encounter something like a songwriter on their own journey, vaguely concurrent with my own, but presumably still wildly different, really makes this world feel as vast as I imagined it to be as a kid. All of which is to say, yeah, I think I would like to give them a tip. Here's hoping you make it, unnamed Kalos folk songwriter. But now let's move in a different direction, if only just for a moment. This is all about the people of Pokemon Centers and the wonderful stories that they may tell, so I think it bears mentioning a story that's told through an absence of people. You could describe Johto's Mount Silver as being at the edge of the world. The virtually untouched mountain range exists in a secluded and isolated corner of the region, where it's something of an island compared to the rest of the country's well-connected geography. The mechanical gameplay experience also strongly conveys this identity, as Mount Silver is the absolute last place the story sends you, and the battle with Red at the top is the game's true final boss. That encounter is definitely the point of this whole ordeal, but I've recently found myself enchanted with the lonely Pokemon Center waiting at the mountain's base. It's the singular facet of modern civilization afforded to this lonely place, like a rest stop on a barren stretch of highway. And inside, it's just you and the staff working there. You are all alone. I'd like to imagine that Pokemon Centers are generally pretty noisy places. People coming and going from these hubs of adventure and having their little chats with passerby. But in this center, it's like I can almost hear the dull hum of the equipment covering up the otherwise ear-splitting silence. This place is at the edge of the world, and the center is the last stop. It's an atmospheric story told through a lack of interaction. And while the rest of the mountain location is the same way, this contrast against the usual for Pokemon Centers is what made Mount Silver as a whole really click for me. And so hopefully it shows that sometimes it's the people who aren't there that are able to tell some of the most powerful stories. Let's take a look at one more. I want to end things here on a more hopeful note, and while searching the centers, I was able to find some quiet but powerful inspiration coming out of Sinnoh's Sunyshore City. This kind-looking gent writes, "To make up for the lack of space, the city built roads out of solar panels. These solar panels provide us with clean energy, and they're good roads. It's a symbol of Sunyshore's will to survive, I think. Maybe I'm just slow on the uptake, but this single line has got me thinking about this town and these people in a completely different light. This is powerful stuff. For one, Sunyshore only has one N in it. That's kinda nuts. But more importantly, this got me to go outside and actually survey the geography of the city, because I then wanted to understand what he was actually talking about. In base physical terms, Sunyshore is ambiguously of average size when compared to the other cities in Sinnoh. However, this comes seemingly as a direct result of an absolute maximization of available space. The majority of the town is composed of rocky cliff walls and islands that absolutely require the aforementioned solar panel bridging to actually be used by inhabitants. There's also virtually no naturally occurring vegetation in sight, and the actually traversable ground looks tough and difficult to use. So yeah, when you examine Sunyshore through that lens, it does kind of feel like they forced this place to be livable through sheer willpower. And they did a fantastic job. You come here at this point and can glide through the town so quickly that you could easily pass over how hard it must have been to get here. Both of the isolated rock faces standing off of the town's coast have been paved over and had buildings placed on top, including the towering Vista Lighthouse. Steep stairways have been carved into the tallest rocks on the mainland, which then act as the connecting points for the sprawling bridges said to power the town. The very thing connecting and making this town work geologically is also the thing fueling its infrastructure. It really is a symbol of Sunyshore's will to survive, but it's also something that's only possible through community and connection. Thank you, random guy in the Pokemon Center. That really is some beautiful subtext about the human condition that you're putting out into the world. And you know, while it might not yield any actual tangential reward, dialogues like these can really offer something experience-wise for a world that's as alive as Pokemon's is. This is that world directly communicating with us about its legends, people, and culture. And in design, the Pokemon Center is the perfect place to hear those stories from strangers. Of course, it's easy to pass by and get caught up in the rush of the game. There's Pokemon to catch, baddies to be stopped, and adventures to be had. But I implore you, if there's ever a moment in between journeys to stop and take a breath, have a chat at a Pokemon Center. Maybe it won't be much, maybe it won't be anything at all, but these stories and tales are the very fabric of a world's storytelling, whether super deep or completely surface level. And obviously, this was nowhere near a comprehensive list. So let's have a crossroad of our own down in the comments. Let me know your favorite Pokemon Centers and/or NPCs hanging out inside, any memories you might have with this subject, and any other thoughts that you have on the video. Give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it, because that's all I got for you this time. As always, thanks a lot for watching. I'm surrounded by beauty. Droomish out.